Helen Keller by Sophia. Helen Keller was a healthy child that grew up in Tuscumbia, Alabama. She was born June 27, 1880. At the age of 19 months, Helen became deaf and blind because of an illness. Doctors suspect it was either scarlet fever or meningitis, but we'll never know. She couldn't see or hear growing up as a child. She was homeschooled, but later on went to Perkins Institute in Boston. When Helen grew older, she became a child who didn't want to follow rules, what we call today an unruly child. Her parents got her a tutor named Anne Sullivan, who helped Helen Keller learn how to read, write, and even talk. However, before that happened, Helen Keller did not want to cooperate. Oh wait, no, scroll down. As an early adult, Helen Keller was still not able to read, write, or communicate very clearly. Nonetheless, she was still able to attend Radcliffe College. There, she was able to excel in school. Helen Keller was also the first blind and deaf person to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. Helen got famous from writing the book The Story of My Life, which was a famous autobiography. Helen was also a lecturer. Her home is now a museum. As I said previously, Helen Keller earned a bachelor's degree and became famous because of her book that she wrote called The Story of My Life. Helen Keller was famous for being a teacher. A lot of people know Helen Keller because of her behavior as a child. She would act like an animal at the dinner table and yell and scream at her mother and Anne Sullivan. Ultimately, she grew up to be a nice and smart person. Her accomplishment was that she learned how to read, write, and speak. In Helen Keller's later life, she had a stroke in 1960 through 1961. She made her last appearance in Washington, D.C. Washington is where she received her last reward before her death. She won the Lions Humanitarian Award for her lifelong service in humanity. Helen Keller's death was on June 1, 1968. Helen also had to spend the end of her life being taken care of. She also had a series of additional strokes as well. Helen Keller's legacy was that she had courage even though she was very overwhelmed her whole life. Helen Keller was the first deaf and blind person to become a teacher, a lecturer, and to receive the prize of Lions Humanitarian for her service. Helen Keller's book will always be read and always be famous. Even though Helen passed away over a century ago, she'll be remembered by family members. And fans because of her great work. She communicated even though she was deaf and blind. She'll be remembered for her great work in humanity. In conclusion, the reason I chose Helen Keller is because she has inspired me to keep pushing hard in school and never give up, even if the challenge seems impossible. Helen Keller kept trying to get better at speech, at reading, and at writing. She kept pushing forward. She wanted to get better at speech, and she did. She's fascinating to me because she pushed onward when most people would have given up. She now has her own book, a Nobel Prize, and her own legend. Helen Keller is a sensation. That is why I wrote about Helen Keller and her background. And now Google Slides. And this is just things I already said in the report, but it's just little things. Biography project, 7 slides, Helen Keller by Sophia. Oh yeah, present. It's in,
no, that's share. That's share.
It's in French.
Guys.
Helen Keller's childhood. Helen Keller was born in 1880 and grew up in Tuscumbia, Alabama. She soon became sick with either scarlet fever or meningitis. She lost her sight and hearing. Legacy. Helen Keller's legacy is that she now has her own company that helps prevent vision loss and helps prevent hearing loss. Accomplishment. Helen Keller learned how to read, write, communicate, and became a lecturer and a teacher. Helen Keller has a series of strokes and died in 1968. The reason I chose Helen Keller. The reason I chose Helen Keller is because she kept trying to reach her goals despite being deaf and blind and finally did. In conclusion, I chose Helen Keller because she inspired me to do better in school and never give up the challenge. I think that's all the slides. Yeah, it is. Okay.
Brava.